Good evening, everyone. I'm Dolores Hogan Johnson, representative for our District 84 here in St. Lucie County. And it's a privilege to be with our school superintendent, Mr. Wayne Gent, and one of our school board members, Mrs. Catherine Hensley. I have gotten, as I travel around the district, as limited as that may be, because I have to order my steps as to where I'm going, but phone calls into the district office and concerns about school. And it started, of course, at the end of last school term about what was happening and the concerns about the students learning, just very concerned about that. And I'm so proud of the different agencies, our school board, our city of Fort Pierce, of Port St. Lucie, our county government, and how they've come together in trying to offer services and reassurances to our population, our citizens. And it's through our storms, through all trials, and this is one of our trials too. But this county, I'm so proud, I can't say it enough, about how we come together to deal with what's going on in our community. I recall when the citizens of St. Lucie County voted last spring on taxing themselves, raising the millage rate to ensure that our schools get the security it needed, that teachers got the pay raises that would help them, and our students got counseling and the different things that they need in order to flourish as students. And I've spent 33 plus years in education in different capacities. And I talked again to the different agencies, and Mr. Gent was one of Fort Pierce Utility Authority. We're hoping to do a similar Facebook Live with them. But there's so many good questions. We had several hundred people go online and ask questions, so we were wanting to deal with that. But again, let's continue to practice our face masks. We've just taken them off for a second in order to speak so we won't sound too muffled. In the social distancing and sanitizing ourselves. This has truly been a learning experience, and I hope that we continue to work together. I'm here, I'm proud to be your representative, and continue to work with all the stakeholders, the citizens, the agency heads, the city managers, the county managers, the superintendents, the boards. It's been a joy. These are trying times, but together we can get through this. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good evening. I'm Catherine Hensley. I have the privilege of being a longstanding member of the St. Lucie County School Board. And I want the community to know that even though we have great challenges in front of us, this district leads the state in setting the example of how collaboration works for the benefit of our students and our society as a whole. We touch about 150,000 people every day when school's in session. We are a significant driver of economic development in St. Lucie County. We have built relationships with everybody in the region, beyond the region actually. Mm-hmm. Every post-secondary research institution, every government. And I'm very proud that we've been able to work together to try to solve some problems that are basically without leadership, except in the local arena. We cannot look to the state or the federal government for leadership on these key issues. But you can look to the leadership within St. Lucie County.
Yes.
I'm very pleased that we have an opportunity to take the questions. It's a trying time for everyone. It's a time of, I wouldn't say panic, but great concern. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that we are as transparent as possible to make sure that everybody in the community, parents as well as citizens as a whole, understand what the plan is and how we are working collaboratively to make sure that we achieve educational goals while we're keeping everyone safe.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Wayne Gent, the superintendent. of St. Lucie Public Schools, and we're pleased that you're with us tonight. And I want to thank Representative Hogan Johnson for what she does for us in the state and in the Capitol, and what she did before she went up there as an educator for 33 years, and for Mrs. Ms. Hensley, our school board member that has served several terms on the school board, and just is really an example of what a school board member should be and represents, and is a model for the rest of the state. And so what we're going to do here tonight is probably answer some questions, but I'm going to give a lesson first. So this is education, and I'm a teacher. We're gonna kind of go through for the parents and for those that are watching what to expect, and then at the end we'll answer some questions, and then see where we go from there. So again, we're happy you're here. We're under an executive order from the Commissioner of Education to make sure that we offer choices to our parents, and so what we have is the regular 5 days brick and mortar, what we call traditional school. So that will be an option this year, and about 51% of our parents, as of right now, have chosen that option. And then the other option will be the virtual option, which will be My School, which 47% are in My School, and then 2% are in Mosaic, but those are both online options. And so what's good about that information right there is that our school centers themselves will be less crowded. We will have less students on our school centers, and that'll be important to us, because schools were not built for social distancing. Schools were built for just the opposite. So let me talk a little bit about the traditional schools and what you can expect at the traditional schools. We have all of the safety precautions are going to be in place. Students and staff and vendors, folks, really the kids will come to school, and first period in the elementary schools, the teachers will really do what's called like a wellness check to see if any children are exhibiting any symptoms of influenza-like symptoms, runny noses, coughing, if they have a fever. Showing any symptoms, they'll be immediately sent down to, we have 2 clinics, and one of them will be an isolation clinic where they would go, and then their temperature would be taken, and if they test really over 100.4, then the parents would be notified to come pick them up. We're going to limit any visitors on campus, any adults that do come on campus, teachers, staff members, they're all going to get a temperature check in the mornings. Questions will be asked to see where they've been and where they've traveled. All students and staff members will be required to wear a mask when social distancing is not possible. And then there will be some mask breaks during the, I get that question all the time. It's going to be tough to wear a mask all day. And so, depending upon the size of the classroom, there'll be certain times when we can do what we call a chin break, and sometimes during recess and during lunchtime, so the students can have a break on that. And our visitors and volunteers, particularly at the beginning of the school year, will be severely limited. Secondly, we talk about what the lessons will look like, and the lessons will look like they've looked in the past. But at the beginning, we're going to really talk to our students about good healthy etiquette, hand washing, wearing the mask. What's so important to the parents is to make sure that if your child is sick, they got to stay home, because you're putting everybody at risk. We don't know whether they have the common cold. We wouldn't know whether they have the COVID virus itself. So it's going to be so important, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But we'll have explicit lessons on healthy habits, how to wash our hands, how to cough, the use of the mask. We're not going to have any assemblies, large gatherings, field trips, or any kind of open houses. Our open houses will be virtual this year. There'll be breaks for hand washing when students go from one class to the other, particularly at the elementary level if they go to their music class or to art class or whatever, and after lunch. And then we're going to really push social distancing. There'll be signage at the school centers so that students will be able to see which way to walk in a line, if they're going upstairs, which side to go on, which doors to go in, and very creative lunch scheduling, which will be probably spread out more so than it's been done in the past. In the facility itself, as I mentioned, we'll have one-way hallways and stairwells. The students themselves will follow that signage. We'll have frequent cleaning of our surfaces, e-misting, disinfecting. Hand sanitizers will be in every classroom. We have hand sanitizers on the bus. We want the students to utilize those when they get on the bus. We want them to utilize it when they get off the bus. And again, like I mentioned before, we'll have 3 health rooms. Really the main clinic, which is really for the what clinics were in the past for just the regular, if somebody has a bump or a bruise or whatever, the routine medication, and then an isolation room, which would be to serve those children that may have a fever or having any kind of flu-like symptoms. And then in a very small number of schools, just a handful, a nebulizer treatment room, which we would be able to help the students with the nebulizer when they need to utilize that. One of the things that'll be very, very important is if those parents that have the children, if you can get them to school without riding the school bus, that's probably going to be beneficial, because again, the school buses themselves weren't built for social distancing as well. So we encourage parents to, if it's safe to ride a bike, if it's safe to walk, to do so, or if they have the capacity to drop them off and pick them up in the afternoon. That's really something that we're going to push as well, so that we can limit the ridership on the buses. Even though most of our campuses will be only 50% of the students, the buses, they're 77 passenger buses. So we want to make sure that through the bus guidelines themselves, children will need to wear the mask, and the students on the bus, they'll have assigned seats. We want the kids that are siblings to sit together. We're going to try to have our windows open when we can for open ventilation, and there may be certain buses with special needs students where that's not possible. And again, as I mentioned before, we'll have hand sanitizer for the students as they enter and exit the bus. And then when they arrive to school, they won't congregate. They'll go either directly to the cafeteria to grab their breakfast, or they'll go directly to the classroom itself. One of the things that we've put out, and it's called Let's Stay Healthy Together, and it's up on the screen right now. And also I want to mention that I'm giving you a lot of information, but this is being taped and it will be posted on our webpage, so parents and students can go back and look at that if we don't answer your questions tonight. But this pamphlet right here is really something that's probably the best condensed pamphlet for our parents and groups. That's really a checklist for what I should do before I come to school, where we should check the temperature. The parents need to do that. You need to take their temperature and do a temperature check before you would put them on a bus, or before you would put them in the car or have them walk to school, to make sure that they don't have a temperature. Make sure they've got their face covering, make sure they've got a water bottle, and if you can provide one, make sure they wash their hands and have their own hand sanitizer. Even though we'll have it at the school center, it doesn't hurt. You can't have too much of that nowadays. And then on the way to school, if we're waiting for the school bus, to make sure that they're practicing social distancing at the bus stop. We know that'll be a challenge, because sometimes there's not a lot of adults there, so we encourage the parents that may be there supervising your child before they get on the bus to help us out with that, to make sure that the kids are social distancing, and we'll have security driving around. But that will be a unique challenge, so we really need our kids to do the right thing with that. And then when students are in the classroom, they'll have their face covering on at all times, unless the teacher says it's okay to take it off, and for specific breaks, or there may be certain classrooms that really social distancing permits that. And then washing their hands frequently throughout the day in the cafeteria, wearing the mask until it's time to eat. And like I mentioned before, we'll have different cafeteria, some things that look a little bit different in the cafeteria, particularly the way students are served. And then with the parents, take your child's temperature. If your child has a fever, for sure, do not send them to school. Don't ever send them to school sick. We're not pushing perfect attendance this year. We're not going to have perfect attendance assemblies. What we want to have are safe. We just want to focus on the health and safety of the students. We want to make sure the kids have a face covering. We want to make sure the students have the water bottle. All of those things that I've mentioned before. So that helps protect everybody. For the students that are going to go virtual with the My School Virtual Online program, well, before that, also on our webpage, we have a series of videos, about a minute and a half to 2 minutes long, little vignettes that talk about universal precautions that we're taking. It talks about what happens if somebody tests positive, how we're cleaning and disinfecting our schools, attendance, cafeteria guidelines. Those are all on our webpage, and they're very well done, produced here at the school district. I think we have on your screen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's about 14 of them, and each one of them, is around 2 minutes long. One of them, it looks like the longest one is 3 minutes and 38 seconds. Strongly encourage the parents to look at that, and they'll be updated as well, because we know we're in a very fluid situation and things change, and sometimes guidance and directions changes as well. For the students that would be doing the My School Online, this will look different than what the last 9 weeks of school looked like. This will be much more structured. Students are going to have their schedule, and they're going to follow their daily schedule. The only difference is they're going to be doing it at home. So if your child is in the elementary school, that teacher is going to come on at whatever time school starts, and they're going to be having attendance taking, and they're going to have real-time lessons with that teacher. There will be breaks for the students where the teacher may be, just like if she were in the classroom doing small groups with the students, we'll be utilizing a platform called Canvas and Teams, which you're familiar with because we utilized that before, but it will be much more rigorous and it will be direct instruction. Attendance will be taken. You need to be there on time because we'll count you as tardies if you're not there. At the secondary level, whatever your class schedule is, let's say at 9 o'clock you've got algebra, and at 10 o'clock you've got science, and 11 o'clock you've got English language arts, then you'll be expected to be tuned in, logged on, and your teacher will be there to meet you, and you'll do your virtual lesson. And it'll be so important that you follow that. If parents struggle with that, or they say, you know what, I want my child to go back to school, to the traditional school, we'll be able at the end of the 9 weeks to do that. You could come back into the traditional school, or if you chose to switch and go to the My School Online option, this will be flexible because we'll be following the same scope and sequence per grade level, so you'll be pretty much in the same general area that you were, whether you're in school or out of school. Also with My School Online, this is a big question. Next week, Monday, beginning the 17th, we will start doing the distribution of the laptops as well as the school supplies, like some of the curriculum supplies that the students will need. So your school will contact you. You'll get a phone call from your principal. And I know you're used to getting those school connector or those robocalls, as we call it, so don't hang up. Make sure you listen carefully to the message because things change daily, as we've mentioned before, and you want to make sure you find out what the schedule is. You can also contact your school or look at the website for your school center, but that will begin next week, and the schools will pick up their laptops at that time. Also with My School, one of the questions is about breakfast and lunch for those students that are doing this at home, and we will have a schedule out for when the students, based upon where you are in the school district, what geographic area you live in, where you could actually come to the school center and really it's probably going to be at the bus loading zone, where you can pick up the lunch and breakfast for 5 days. It'll be it's going to be a frozen meal package, and we'll do that 1 day a week. And that information will come out, and we'll continue. That'll be on our webpage, but we'll continue to let the public know of what to expect and when that will be. And then we also talk about if anything happens within the school center, and this is another question. We know that there's going to be children that are going to get sick. We know that will come down positive, and we will work very closely with the health department. And so you see on your screen right now, you see kind of like the flow chart as to what we do and how and what steps the school district would take. The most important thing is that we will work very, very closely and are working very closely with our local Department of Health and the Florida Department of Health. They would do contact tracing. They would make the determination as to which students may need to be quarantined and then for how long that would be. And again, we will we'll follow that very, very closely with the health department to ensure the safety of all of our students. That's why it's going to be so important to monitor your child daily, to make sure to see what they're looking like, how they're feeling, and also to take those calls that are coming from the school center in case there is a need to close a classroom, in case there's a need to have certain students stay home. We know that we won't be able to communicate or over-communicate enough really with our parents. We've had a few questions that have come in, so if it's okay, I'll go ahead and read a couple of them, and then see if you guys got some questions too. The first question I have right now is how will the schools effectively provide the My School Online students under the IDEA requirements that are written in a student's IEP? This is really for our ESE children, and these children are really entitled to receive the same IEP services that are written in their plan, whether they're in school in person or whether they're going to be doing it at home. All these services will be provided on the learning platform. If you have any specific questions, again, contact the school center, speak to the administrator or to the ESE chairperson, but make sure that it's a federal law and it's just the right thing to do. So we'll work very closely on that. Second question I have is, will laptops be configured with accessibility tools to fulfill the needs of the IEP. And then again, this is really an exceptional education student question, and it's a great question. The tools are already built into the Microsoft platform, and the teachers have been trained on these tools. We'll also have these, quote, how-to videos for our parents and students on our webpage so that you can look at those as well to help you navigate through this. Teachers have also been provided special training on how to provide the accommodations to the students in a virtual format. There may be a couple, just let's be very honest, there may be a couple of bumps along the way as we first roll this out, because this is really going to be a little bit new, but we will have it fine-tuned very, very quickly and have a problem-solving mechanisms in place if there are any little blips here and there, especially within the first couple of days. The third question I have, a great question. I have a senior, and through the My School option, will the senior be able to complete their credits early but still graduate with their class at the end of the year? And the answer, quite simply, is yes. The same rules apply as they applied last year. Seniors who meet the graduation requirements early at the end of that first semester can graduate early but still participate with the students at the end of the year with that. So that's a great question. Another question regarding ESE, and this is really for ESE and all students. What is the expectation for ESE students to sit in front of the computer all day? Well, there's really not an expectation for our children to do that. That's not good practices. So what you will have, there will be screen time for the students, but there'll also be times when the students are off and on the computer throughout the day. There'll be real-time lessons that are going on. Sometimes there'll be some online lessons that occur. Sometimes the teacher will be working with a certain group of students online, just like they would in the classroom. Other students will be working on a project that teacher gives them. They'll have their own lunchtime as well, a lunch break at the elementary level. They'll have recess as well. So we're trying to make it look as close as it will look to the academic day. So even though there will be a lot of screen time, it will not be continuous. And then we'll build in breaks for those students, and that'll be something that we're training our teachers on as well. This is a question about substitutes. Will they be able to teach virtually? And the answer is yes, too. We are doing extensive training not only for our teachers, but for substitutes as well, particularly our long-term substitutes, to make sure that they can step in. If a teacher is going to be out for a day or two, we may have online lessons that may not require that teacher. But if it's going to be an extended period of time where that teacher would be out, then there would be a substitute coming on board that has been adequately trained or thoroughly trained to take over those lessons, just like they would be doing in a brick and mortar setting if we were in a traditional setting. A question here about if siblings are at different schools and one tests positive, will they both have to stay home? And it's really a good question. This would be really dependent upon what the health department tells us to do. The health department would conduct a thorough contact tracing, and then if they deem it's necessary for the siblings to stay home, then they would stay home. And then you would have that quarantine period of the 14-day quarantine before they would be allowed to come into school center. Those are some of the questions that I have. Representative Johnson, I'm going to maybe switch over and turn it back over to her, and she might have some additional questions that may have come in. Or any questions for me as well, and the same for Mrs. Hensley.
Well, I'd been in conversations with a couple of the bus drivers, and they were concerned about, because I'd asked them, I said, I'm sure you guys are having training and what have you, what is that? And a couple of them have said they've done, I guess, the online kinds of things. And in the conversations that I've had, I said, because the district has done some fantastic little vignettes, little videos about how things are supposed to happen in the classroom and the cafeteria. So have you guys been, reviewed or trained as to how many students to a seat? I hear you say about the windows being open. So talk about that.
Okay, with the bus drivers themselves, the bus drivers report back next week as well. They'll go through extensive training. We're going to have, through that would be where the students will have assigned seating. we really, we're working on the bus schedules right now and how many students will be riding the buses. We'll have that information for the school centers next week, as well as the students, our special needs children and their transportation as well. And then work with the drivers on the assigned seating. So that'll be something that would occur the first day. The drivers themselves will have not only the mask on, but they'll have the shield that will cover them. They'll have gloves. And when the students get on the bus, right to the left when they get on the bus will be the station for them to do the hand washing, and and then they can do that when they get off the bus as well. So our drivers will be thoroughly trained on that.
Good. Thank you. Good answer.
The questions, I get a lot of questions, but some of them I think are more complex than most people understand. They would like to know why we just didn't keep schools closed and maybe not open until October and keep paying everybody. Well, of course, that's not possible. You really can't get paid for not working, especially when the budget is, like, as you are very well aware, is as tight as it is all the time. It's also, there's a bigger picture when we talk about, as you know, I'm involved with a variety of organizations. So there's a real concern about the increase in domestic violence, the increase in child abuse, the increase in drug use and alcohol. Those impact our kids so significantly. And we don't have a good way at this time to have eyes on those children. And we haven't had a good way since March. So there's a bigger picture here. It's not as simple as open or close. It is looking at what our students, what our kids need. And some of our kids need us. They need to be in a place where their parents know they're going to be safe. And so we have to look at a very in-depth picture of the mental health components, the trauma that some of our families are going through, our trauma-informed care program, our social emotional learning. They're ready to pick up that gauntlet with the community partners. As you know, we have a partnership with a mental health collaborative. We have school district has agreements with New Horizons that's paid for by Children's Services Council. We have a lot of things in place, and we don't know that everything's going to work, but we do know that everybody's on the same page, and everybody is looking at those children to make sure that we can do the best for every child and minimize the trauma they've been through, while we also have a cadre of entities who are trying to work with families to make sure their trauma is mitigated. We have a very high unemployment rate, and anytime a crisis happens, the people who are the least income people, the people that are close to poverty or even in poverty, are the ones that take the hit the first and usually for the longest, and that is a community concern. So having our children to be in front of somebody, that's a parent choice. Doing the live streaming, that's a different parent choice, but teachers will be able to see those children. And I think that is a very key thing, that when we know that kids are better off in school.
Right.
They're social animals. They like to do that. The situation is not normal, may not be normal for a year. Year's going to be bumpy, and we're going to make mistakes. One thing that I know about this district and this county is that there's a way to rectify that mistake or address that overnight. I had a situation, a question that was asked, it was rectified in 2 hours. So we have things in place, but there is a great deal of concern, and the simplistic questions don't have a simplistic answer. And
For sure.
sometimes we do get down into asking very minute questions so we understand what that person is where that person is coming from. But I do think, I do hope that the community has enough respect and trust in the system that we are doing everything that we possibly can, following the science that we know, keeping politics out of the decision as much as possible.
Yes.
While we're following a mandate from the Department of Education to do certain things, we are willing always to push it up to the line, but we never go across the line.
I can understand that. And just dovetailing on Ms. Henley's comments, I think early on when I got back from the Capitol in March, I think it was April, Will Armstead with Boys and Girls Club. We were talking, and he had called and left a message, got back with him. And his concern was about children in households and the propensity. A lot of times when that happens, you know, everything is tense. They're in there, they can't go out, you know, and parents start taking it out on them. So we were talking about that, and one of the things that they did, and Gaiman and Frontline for Kids, the different agencies, and asking them to pay closer attention to the students and what's going on with them, and just you know, have those extra eyes looking at them. I wanted to ask Mr. Gent, in my background, in fact, I was the first director of social services for public housing, so you can imagine the exposure there. And then I was a school social worker and the dean of students for 11 years. So I came in contact with a lot of the different social agencies. And as you mentioned, Children's Services Council. And I'm just hoping, and I know, and especially when the citizens said, hey, we'll tax ourselves so we can get the children's help, the help that they need. So I would applaud and look forward, and I know it's happening, but it has to be concentrated on more coming together, the school social workers, social services department, all of the ancillary agencies that are around, getting together, you know, Zoom is a thing, however possible, to make sure that, you know, you're going to have some of the same students. That school social worker, that guidance counselor will have some of the same students that are involved with the different other social agencies. So I think it's a time that coming together and closer scrutiny, closer collaborative efforts should be put, you know, for the families.
I think that when you talk about Children's Services Council, I'm quite tied in with that.
Yes.
All of the directors of our after-school programs have been meeting by Zoom on a regular basis. And we had asked that some of them be able to pivot to do something different starting in March. Putting together a collaborative of different funding opportunities and to build a base of support that we were able to keep people paid even though they were not doing the same job, and gave them the opportunity to change the way their delivery method. And that did happen. And what we're working on now is something similar with that for the students who are not going to be in a school center, but there's concern that they will not be in a place that may be of benefit. And how do we facilitate that as a community?
Yes.
Where does the money come from? How does that look? Do we have people in place to give the students the true support that they need? So that is an ongoing conversation.
Very good.
And there is a real focus on that issue, and there's a real understanding of the importance of that. The school district is heavily involved with that. Mr. Gent has volunteered to have anybody who works with those students to be trained so they understand what they're seeing. And that's very highly encouraged. And so we have a proposal that is in front of us tomorrow morning at Children's Services Council meeting to do something very unique regarding some funding opportunities to make sure that we have eyes on our kids.
Very good. Very good.
If I can jump in, and because I've got a couple more questions here, if that's okay. And one of the questions that we get is about the computer distribution and the computers that we gave out in the spring.
Oh, yeah.
And it said, you know, do I need to turn it back in, or can I use that same computer? And we need for you to turn that old computer, the one that you had before, back in, because we need to refurbish them, we need to put some software on them, and we need to clean them up. So it's so important that you turn that in, and if you haven't done so yet, please contact your school. You can turn it in at your school center, because we're not going to distribute a new computer to a student if they still have one that's out. It's like a textbook. It belongs to the school district, and we need to take it back and fix it up and make sure you've got the best tool available to you. Another question is, I've got 3 kids, or 3 students, or 3 siblings that are going to be at home. Yes, there will be a computer for each one of them, even if they're at 3 separate schools. they'll each have their own computer because they're all going to be on with their teacher. So they're not going to be together, hopefully in the same room, but they're going to be in separate parts of the house where they're going to be doing their lessons. But it's important that if you still have a computer out, that you turn it in order for you to get an additional computer. And then to kind of piggyback on what you all were just saying, on August 24th, it will have been almost 5.5 months since we've seen our students. And we know that the first and best teacher should be the parent. But we also know that that's not the case in this country for many of our children, and we know that that's not the case sometimes in our own community, and that's no fault of the child. And so one of the things that we're going to be focusing in on at the very beginning is what we call the social emotional learning, the total child, just to find out what's happened over the last 5.5 months and how can we help support them. And because they've been isolated, just like adults are isolated, and adults get, they go out and take the mask off or go to gatherings and large social gatherings, and we know that that's not good for us, but they feel like they need an outlet. Our kids feel the same way. That's why they want to come back to school and socialize. And it's going to be important that we can do a wellness check, not only on the outside and see if they have any influenza-like symptoms, but on the inside, what's going on and are they hurting? And then if they do need additional help or support from agencies that we work closely with, our guidance counselors are very well trained and know what to do there. So, and that's important for them because that's important for the health of our community, the vitality of our overall community. And so that's something that we will focus in on all year long, but especially when we see the children, because we haven't seen them in 5.5 months, almost a half a year. And knowing that this will be a new kind of something that's new, but that's so important to us. It's just as important as the academic piece. The other thing I want to say, we talked about the training for the bus drivers. I want to credit our school board for pushing back the opening of school to August 24th. That gave us additional time. We have 2 weeks now. This week we're on Wednesday, so we have 2 more days this week and then the 5 days next week to train our teachers and to train our staff members and to train everyone on what this will look like and what this new school is going to look like this new school year. And because that's going to be so important for our teachers to adequately to help our kids in whether it's a virtual world or whether it's in person. And we know that the most important thing that goes on is that human connection that teacher will make with that child. And so whether they're in front of them in the classroom or whether they're on a screen, that connection is going to be so important. And it's going to be important for the parents to monitor closely what their child is doing. Because again, I can't overemphasize this enough. This will not look like, My School Online will not look like the last 9 weeks looked. Because then we threw it together so quickly because we had no other option, and we got the computers out quickly. But now we've had time really to adequately train up our teachers. So it's going to look like school, except it's going to be at the house. And it'll be important for the parents to continue to monitor what's going on and to make sure that the children are following along. And you're going to get calls from your teachers, and you're going to, they're going to continue to communicate with the parents or the caregiver. But there's an expectation for the children as well to be there every day on time when they're logging in, and to make sure that they're staying focused, that they're asking questions, and if they need additional help or support, they'll have the mechanism in front of them to get that help and support from that teacher or from the school center itself to do whatever we need to do.
It's very good. Because we've had questions, or I have, and I'm sure Ms. Hensley too. Is it going to be like before? So I'm glad you went into detail and said no. That was put together very quickly. Okay, accountability is key. So.
Right. I don't think anything's going to be like before, whether it's in or out of school. But I do. But it will look different. And it'll be truly virtual, and we want to make sure, but we can accomplish both. And so again, it's a choice that the parents have made, and there'll be an opportunity for parents to go either way, to go back to school or to leave school and to go online. So that'll happen at the end of each 9-week marking period or grading period. But if there's a special circumstance that occurs in between, we're certainly going to work with the parents on that as well.
So again, they'll be able to switch up each 9 weeks?
Well, at the end of the 9 weeks period would be a time to, if you chose to go, if you want to go to My School totally and leave the school, or you want to go back to school, that would be the time to do that. We don't want them every 9 weeks switching back and forth.
No, okay.
But we're going to work with parents because we know that we know how important this is, and and every child has their own learning style. So, we're going to be flexible. We're going to work with the parents and the caregivers to make sure that whatever's in that best interest of that student, that's going to help them to be as successful as they can be, is what we're going to do. That's what we're about anyway, whether it's virtual or in person.
Very good.
So one of the questions I had was for the students that are going to be at home that don't have access or good access to Wi-Fi, how's that going to be accomplished? Our technology department in the spring when they were out, there were
Trying to put it
parked
together.
around for no obvious reason, but they are Wi-Fi. So that enhances or actually provides Wi-Fi, and that has been accomplished. And there's an agreement so that some people can't afford it, but they have access, but they haven't been able to pay for it. There's some of those things in the pipeline also. So that gave the parents more options, knowing that they actually their kids could have access to the My School. And there's some other things that are going on, but the technology piece, as I think, is all magic, basically, anyway, right? So to make sure that the kids have appropriate access, and so there's no wrong door. If there's a question or there's a problem, anybody at the district, any board member there's no wrong door. Let that person know what the problem is, and we get it into the hands of the right person who can actually address it. So we're not the keepers. I'm not the keeper of the information, but I know who is. And so we have a very, very transparent policy. You can call anybody that you know, and any of our staff will get it into the right hands to address your issue or to make sure probably that's going to be resolved. And sometimes people have to understand that the resolution may be no. No is a justifiable answer in some cases.
Exactly.
But there are issues that they have that sometimes just needs an explanation, and not just a resolution, but they just need to understand more. So I would encourage anybody that has an issue to make sure that I'm sure everybody knows somebody in the district, because we have the largest employer in the region, and get those questions out. All of our emails are on the web page. They can always email any of us, and we'll try to make sure that the professional can address them.
Good, very good. And I
have a couple of other questions kind of coming in, so I'd like to, and one of, these are really, it's probably the main question. If a child tests, or if a child, if a child has the symptoms and a child is positive, let's say test positive, what will happen in that classroom? What will happen at the school center? And so we showed the flow chart before, but we will be in contact. There'll be contact tracing. So the health department would come in and then find out, who was in that individual. It depends upon the circumstances. Was it the school bus? Which classroom was it in? Was it several classrooms? And then they'll do the contact tracing. And then those parents that will be notified, we can't give names of students, but they would be notified by the health department or by the school district and then told what to do next. Whether, that means to stay home, to go see your healthcare provider. I know up on the screen is the flow chart that was just listed. So we would work with the parents in conjunction with the health department for the contact tracing, just like you would do with an adult, in any business setting or in any outside setting, and then work closely, contact the parents that need to be contacted. It's real simple. If you're contacted, if you're not contacted, don't worry. And if you are contacted, don't worry either, but they'll give you then specific information on what the next steps would be. So we would be in close communication. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think we can communicate enough with our parents through this. And again, it's something that we haven't done in the past. And it's important, I think, for the parents to know, that our teachers and our administrators, we're all feeling the same human emotions that you are. We've all, we feel anxious, we have fear at times, we get angry at times on some things that we see that are occurring. We're humans, just like you are, and we all have our own stories. We're aware of folks that have lost their jobs through this. We're aware of people that have lost family members. So we can empathize with that and bring that human connection to you, that we know exactly what you're going through. I've been doing this a long time, And that's one of the things I pride myself on is putting myself in your shoes and what's the answer to this situation or that situation, and hopefully we get it right. Not hopefully, but we will. But we're all really, it's, you hear we're all in this together. And so it'll be a fluid process, but we will be in active communication to the parents that need to be communicated with. And it will also be important that if you have specific questions, that you call your school principal or you call me. You call your school board member, because we know that we need to make sure that we give you the accurate information, because we don't want you out there wondering, what about this and what about this? This is my child's safety. This is our teacher's safety. This is our staff member's safety. That's so important to us. And so if you see things on social media, let's be honest, sometimes it's not true. And sometimes it's really bizarre stuff. And what we want to do is make sure that we're giving you real, accurate information that we have that's based on the science and not on politics, as Ms. Hensley mentioned before, to do the best that we can to protect the boys and girls and the young people that are in our schools. So I wanted to make sure we got that out and answered that question for the parents.
Right. I'm so glad that you emphasize that even more, and I urge our citizens to make sure that you call and ask questions. They're not just saying that to say something, but information, facts are good. So call your schools again. I can't emphasize it enough. Your principals, school board members, Mr. Jen, anybody here at the staff, because we want to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible. So don't go wondering. Call, ask. It's important.
Yeah, one of the other questions talked about the school bus itself, and I think it's a great question. When we talk about why the students themselves should be sitting in the same seat every day, and if you're with your brother or sister, and you may battle at home all the time, but you got to sit together, and we need the students in the same seats, because if somebody does test positive and we do the contact tracing, then it's real easy to find out who sat close to that individual student or group of students, and then the determination is made through the health department. Is the entire bus shut down? Is it students that were within this proximity to that student? The same thing within the classrooms when we have assigned seating. It's similar to like when we go to the lunchroom, and lunch will be, it'll be extended, where the schools are working out unique logistics for the seating, so that we know where the students are and where they sit. So if there is a case where we need to act quickly on that, and with the health department, that we know who to contact right away. So the school bus, that's why we do the school bus assigned seating, and knowing, let's be honest again, knowing that school buses weren't designed for social distancing. So if you have a better way to get them to school where you can drop them off, even if you can drop them off, and they take the bus home in the afternoon, or vice versa, so that we can limit the ridership on the buses, that'll go a long way as well.
It's very important, very important. Again, this is something that the bus drivers, speaking to the bus situation, that they know their students and know where they're sitting, because, when I was dean, I'd be out on the bus ramp and so, I have them sitting in a specific place. So that's going to be critical.
Well, we're finding some of the comments that have been made about our health department have been unfair. We were given a mandate, and our mandate says that the health department gives us basically what they normally do with all these is yes or no, this, what's going on. Mm-hmm. Our health department director is actually an employee of the state.
Yes.
And he was given a different mandate. So that's an unfortunate thing. We cannot look to the health department to tell us when we need to open or close. They have been told they cannot do that. That's an unfortunate situation for all of us, because we, as you know, for years, that's what we relied on through several directors, is that they would tell us what needed to happen with different things that came up, epidemics or whatever. So we can't do that. So the health department, even if they wish they could tell us, they are precluded from doing that by the state health department.
Right, and we have a fine director in Clint Sperber, and he's such a caring person. And when I see him and we talk at times, it hurts, but he has bosses too, but he'll try to do anything possible to help families in the county, cities, the school district. So he'll do his best.
Well, he has really good epidemiologists.
Yes.
The unfortunate thing is like every agency in Florida, Madam Representative, they are significantly underfunded,
Yes.
overregulated, underfunded. And so he has epidemiologists that he could hire. They're available. He cannot hire them. He has no funding. And so that's an unfortunate situation. And when we're looking at a pandemic like we have, of course, as you know, I think it was mishandled from day one.
Oh, yes.
I thought that when things started happening very, very earlier in the year, I have a relative who was on a respirator for a ventilator for 57 days. He finally went home after many days. That was in the first part of March. He was home last Saturday in a wheelchair. Probably a miracle type case. I think everybody's been touched with that. And we try to, the first incident, use that as a bellwether and always plan for the worst case scenario and hope and pray for the best.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is not the case everywhere.
Again, I do applaud the school system, and working with y'all is so important. Mr. Gent, you had some.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up here. We've got just a couple, I have two more questions, and then again, this is being videotaped so that you can go back and look at it. Also on our district webpage, is we have a reopening plan. It's a 60-page document, and it changes. It changes sometimes daily based upon the latest information that comes in. One of the questions was about the masks themselves, and are there exemptions to wearing the mask? And that's on an individual basis based upon the student itself, and if it's a special needs student, and depending upon what that disability is, there would be reasons for that. And certain teachers in certain, particularly in the ESE classrooms, and dependent upon the disability that the child has, they'll have their own specialized equipment as well. But we're not going to play games when it comes to wearing the mask at school, and I want to be perfectly clear on that. That the expectation is, if there's an exemption, it's going to be a medical exemption for certain students. That's why parents were given the choices that they're giving, to either keep the child at home and do the My School option, or to return to the school. But we want to keep our staff members safe, and we want to keep our students safe, and so that's a requirement to wear that mask. And if a child doesn't want to wear it, they're going to be counseled. You need to wear it, and if not, then parents are going to be contacted, and we have to look for another alternative, which would be the My School alternative, because we owe it to the protection of the other children. But yes, there will be certain kids with exemptions based upon the needs that they have, medical needs that they would have. And then there was another question. I know this is on parents' mind. Well, if somebody tests positive in the school, I want to know about that. There are laws that we have to adhere to. That I can't give out student names. We'll work closely with the health department on that, and then parents would be notified on the contact tracing. But you may see stories or articles that are in the newspaper, or you could contact the school center itself. But there's confidentiality laws that we're not allowed to say so much. But I can assure you, as superintendent and with the school board, that I'm going to be on this every day and working with our health departments and trying to make sure that we can disseminate as much information as we are allowed to disseminate. Because again, I'm a grandparent now. I have no school-age children, but I've got a 5th grader and a grandchild and a preschool child that are both in schools in Martin County, and they started earlier this week. And so, I know what that's like, and I would want to know as well what's going on. I heard this or I heard that. So we'll do the best that we can to give out accurate information, but there will be some confidentiality that we must adhere to. I just want to say in closing, and if you have other additional questions, you can notify your school center. That's the best way, is to contact the school and the administration. But if you contact our public affairs office, or if you go onto our webpage, the webpage itself has a lot of information that's on there, and that will change as well. But I want to assure you, first of all, thank you for tuning in tonight. I want to thank Representative Johnson for kind of spearheading this and bringing it together, and then for School Board Member Mrs. Hensley to be here as well, because you won't find two finer people who are committed. They walk the walk. They care about our children, and they There's legislation in Tallahassee that tries to get passed for that, and the community agencies that they serve here as well. So they are true advocates for our children, and we are looking forward. This will be the most challenging year we've ever faced in public education, and probably as a nation. And I just want to assure you that we're doing everything that we can to protect our children and to protect our staff members, and we'll continue to do that, and hopefully, and we'll continue to communicate with you. Check our webpage, ask questions, call the school, ask questions. You can get a hold of me, you can email me, you can email our public affairs office, and we'll get an answer to you, and hopefully within 24 hours, if not sooner, because we know how important this is. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'll let you all close it out.
Thank you so much for agreeing so readily to do this, Mr. Gent. And again, I urge the parents to ask questions. I know there were some about, being in the hallway. I know you had mentioned about the one-way, and there was a parent asking about the social distancing in that one-way travel. So please make sure you ask questions.
Mm-hmm. I think that as public officials, we try to always model the behavior we would expect of our constituents. I find that has not always been the case, but I do find that in this building and in this district, we do have people that are very, very concerned about making sure that they model the correct behavior for the students and for the other people that they work with. So we do masks. I have a variety of masks.
Of course.
And and it is really not a time for amateurs to try to get into the arena. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult, and as you know, we've known each other for, I don't know, what, 30
Forever.
years probably?
I know.
Okay.
Your babies are in school.
It's very important that the public understand that there are people who are willing to take time out of their lives, ask the hard questions, make the hard decisions, and know that we always focus on what's best for children, and that is it. That's our agenda.
That's it.
Our only agenda.
Very good.